Yes, my name is Truc Huynh. I'm now living in Ottawa, Canada.
Right. We'll begin by taking you back to the end of the war, 1975 around. Can you tell me about your life, where you were living?
Back in 75, I was living in Saigon, Vietnam, South Vietnam. I was 11 years old student in grade 6, I think I remember when the war finished. I was in grade 6, living with my parents and 3 siblings. Yeah.
What was your life like?
We are middle class family, and I remember life is quite stable despite the war raging around the country. But we are living in the city, so pretty much shelter from the war. And I think my upbringing is like pretty normal. We go to school and we play with friends, and yeah, pretty much.
When did you decide to leave?
I think up in 78, my parents decided that we should leave Vietnam. Yeah, that's 3 years after the war. We had the chance to leave in 75, but my dad turned it down because he wanted to stay in the country. He don't want to leave the homeland. So only after 3 years under the new communist government that he decided that we should leave. There was no future for us.
What happened that made your family want to leave?
This is an interesting question. Yeah, so I want to take some time to elaborate this question. But from memory, it's in general, it's a lack of freedom, I remember. Either the freedom of speech, freedom of to move around. Yeah, so I think people are pretty shocked and traumatized when with the new regime. It's everything is tightly controlled. What you eat, where you go, who you talk to. It's a general sense of oppression, like living in a big jail. Yeah. So that's one thing, is the lack of freedom. Secondly, I think it's like there's no, there's no democracy. Like they organize election, but their own rate. There's only one party, and the approval rate is always 99%. So it's a lack of democracy, and I think that people have a hard time is about the lawlessness of the country, because in every neighborhood different law is applied. Like the policeman would be the law. So he can change his mind every day and he would be the law. He will tell you that I am the law. So not much you can do about because he had the gun. So it makes things pretty difficult to for the people. Like in general, I found that people have they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, because government is making bad policy or bad management over the years. and people were losing trust to the government. And yeah, so they don't have any hope. I think that's the main issue. They don't have any hope. So when you don't trust the government and when you're hopeless, and so that's why people decided to leave the country. In the case of my family, anyway, that the way we were feeling.
Do you have any memories from your own personal experience to give as example of that loss of freedom?
Yes, as a teenager, I remember under the new government, I have to spend a lot of time lining up for food. Yeah, usually before the new government, I would spend my free time playing with friends. But now I realize that I spend a lot of time lining up for food to help my mom do something else. So that's my personal experience. Also, I was told by my parents that I have to be careful about my language in school or around friends, because it can be persecuted by police or government official if I say something they don't like. So it made me realize for the first time in my life that I have to speak carefully, that people are listening and then they can do something against you and your family. Yeah.
Who was listening?
Like if I talk to a friend, he can report it to the police. That's the way they control the population. They encourage people to denounce their friends if they talk or say bad things about the government. So that's the way they use us to control each other. And yeah, it was quite a shock for us. We used to live in a normal society, and now all of a sudden there's a new model. And in general, we don't like it. We feel that our human rights have been violated. Yeah.
So how did you escape?
We escaped by boat. We attempted 3 times. So the third time we went through. The first time there was some logistic issue. We could not connect with the big boat, so we had to we sent back home. Second time we went on the big boat, went out to the sea, but then the big storm hit, so we had to turn back and went home, very disappointed. And finally, in the dark night of in September 1978, I remember, with a full moon, we went to the big boat and sailed for 4 days to Malaysia.
Could you spend some time describing all the different times that you tried to escape? Let's start with the first time. When was it, and what arrangements did your parents make?
For the first time, I was alone. My parents stayed behind, and they sent me with my uncle and aunt to escape. But then we went from Saigon to Mỹ Tho, and at night we supposed to take the rowboat to go to connect with the big boat. but it had some logistic issue. We were waiting and waiting at night. The big boat never came. So early in the morning, we got sent back to take the bus to Saigon.
How old were you at the time?
I was 14 years old.
So 1978.
78. Yeah, it was June 78. And the next month, we attempted the second time. I think it's in July or August 78. This time I went along with my brother and my dad. So 3 of us. So basically we went through the same road, went to the Mekong Delta, connect to the big boat. We went onto the big boat during the middle of the night because it had to happen during the night, so the police cannot catch you, right? So we waited for every group to get into the big boat, and then we sailed outside of Vietnam to the ocean, only to realize that it was too stormy. The wave was way, way too big. Because the water is coming on top of the boat. And at this point, we are scared that the boat is going to capsize. So decision had been made to go back because we will not survive that storm.
That second boat, how big was it?
It was always, by the way, it's always the same boat for 3 attempts. It's, I remember, it's 40 feet long by 15 feet wide. 75 people. Yeah, 75 people. And everybody was in the storage, fish storage department under the boat. Yeah, so it was pretty crowded. I remember, very crowded. Kids are crying, people are vomiting. It's rough, very rough. But my second attempt is only last for half a day. So we went back. And on the third attempt, a month or 2 months later, in September 78, we went out same road and all the way. It took 4 days to go all the way to Malaysia. It was a relatively smooth sail, no pirate, no big storm, only some rain. But we did not realize that there was no food or water. Yeah. Well, after the second day, there was running out of food and water. So that was, and people start to have seasick because most of the people, they never went to sea travel in their life. That's the first time. So it's a lot of people got sick pretty badly.
Just to go back a little bit and dwell on a little bit of a detail. It was the same boat. Was it the same captain, the same crew?
Same crew.
So
yeah.
What happened to the first time? Where was he?
The owner and the captain of the boat, for some reason, they could not make it in time. And too bad there was no cell phone at the time. Otherwise, we could have connected with them and get everybody together. But there was no way to communicating where they were, and we waited for like 6-7 hours. They did not show up, so we had to go back.
So you didn't lose money that first time then?
No. So it's between friends and relatives. So same group, we tried 3 times. Yeah, they didn't charge extra money or anything.
There was a group of like 73 people around waiting that first time when the boat didn't come, waiting along the shore. How did you not catch attention?
We were scattered in different houses along the river bank. It's not the big group, no. Each group have 5 or 6 people. hiding in various houses or community center. So there's many pickup points. So they pick up, let's see, 10 people here, another 10 further down the river. So they organize the logistic. I'm not sure because I was with a group or two, my group. So yeah, so there was some communication issue, and then there's one or two group that we could not pick up, and they happened to be the captain. So then there's no way we can sail out.
And then the second time was you, your dad, and is it a younger brother? Or
my younger brother, yes, my younger brother.
You set out at night?
Yeah.
And then when was that storm?
We got onto the big boat during the night, and in the morning, the next morning, after like 6-7 hours going down the river to the ocean, and as we get to the ocean, the wave is getting too big, and the wind pick up, and the rain, everything. Yeah, so then we realized that there was a big storm in the ocean. And we decided to go back. Yeah.
July is a monsoon season too.
I think so. Yeah.
So
I guess they did not check the weather forecast before they go.
do you remember making the trip back?
Not too much. Only thing I remember is we were all wet, very wet and miserable. So when we board the bus to go back to Saigon, it was a bit unusual because everybody else on the bus was dry, and we're the only one, the wet one. So I don't know. I remember my brother missing a sandal. He only had one sandal, so that's kind of weird. We looked very suspicious, yeah, to the police, but luckily did not get caught by police.
Because that was a very, very real danger, right?
Yeah, police. Yes, if there's a checkpoint, can easily be arrested by the police and be jailed for it.
When when everybody came off that boat, did you also have to
split up?
take
Yeah, split up.
To
yes.
people, a few groups at a time?
Exactly. Same. Yes, that's the idea. We don't want to be big group all together and look too suspicious to police.
And was that also at night that you disembarked?
I think disembarked during the day. Yeah, daytime. I don't remember exactly what time, but during the daytime. So they drop off everybody in the small fishing village, and from there we take public transportation to go to the main bus station, go back to Saigon. Yeah, and the concern was to be caught by police, because if you get caught by police, you will be accused of treason to the country, because you try to escape the Vietnam. That was a big crime. That proved that you don't. That's the proof that you don't approve the communist regime, and they don't like that idea. So it's not like today. People can travel out of Vietnam freely, but at the time it was very tightly controlled.
The third time was were you all together, your whole family together when you got on the boat?
No, the third time was still three of us, me, my brother, and my dad. So my mom and my two youngest brothers stayed behind on purpose. First of all, because my younger brothers are too young, so they probably won't survive the trip. And another purpose is my mom, by staying behind, can help us in case we get caught by police and go to jail. So she can help us to get out of jail. Yeah, so that was the plan for my parents. I didn't have nothing to do with those planning, but my parents, that was their plan.
How old were your brothers at time, the ones that stayed behind?
One was 10. The youngest one was 4 years old. Yeah, 10 years old and 4 years old. They stayed behind.
And your mom, was she working at that time?
Yes, she was working part-time as the nurse. Yes.
So she had a way to support the kids.
Yeah, and she also have my aunt to support her. She have relative in Vietnam. Then we help each other to survive those hard times.
So the third time, you did it again. Tell me about that.
So the third time, as I mentioned, in September. So supposed to be a school day. So instead of going to school, I just grab my school bag, pretend I go to school, but I'm going directly to the bus station, heading to the Mekong Delta. So then we went, get along on the bus. It was a rainy day, pretty depressing, I remember, because I know that I can leave this homeland, this country forever, and never come back. So it was sad. It's a sad feeling. And then we went to a fishing village and went into somebody's house that the organizer had set up. We went to that house, wait for the night come. So when at night we get to the riverbank, we pick up a rowboat, and from there row until a smaller boat. So from rowboat to a smaller boat, and then from smaller boat we sail for about half an hour to an hour to meet with the big boat that's waiting for us at a very specific location in the middle of the Mekong River. Yeah, so I remember the river is so big, so large, in the middle of the night. So I have no idea of direction, just the darkness and the wind and the little wave. And apparently they have some signal system. They use a flashlight 2 times to signal that, okay, that boat people are coming. So we boarded the big boat. And one group after another until everybody got on the big boat. And then around midnight, start to sail from the Mekong Delta to the ocean. Yeah.
Do you know why that big boat had to be located at a specific location?
Now I think I understand that need to be some place that is outside from police. Yeah, so because they navigate the Mekong River frequently, so they knew which area is safe to park the boat without being tracked by the police. Yeah, so, but logistically, I'm not sure, but just that's my guess. Yeah, that's my guess.
You mentioned feeling sad. Were you also scared about encountering another storm?
Yes, I was quite concerned about the weather, the seasickness. Yeah, so but luckily none of that happened. Just from there, I remember the next day, captain announced that we hit international water. And that has a very significant meaning for us because it means that we cannot be arrested by Vietnamese police anymore. So like we are partially free. Yeah, I remember that moment very clearly. So that's the second day. But the celebration didn't last very long because people start to get sick, seasick very quickly from the wave of the ocean, and people start vomiting, and kids are crying, like young mother, like they are screaming for help. People have problem breathing because under the boat was too tight and the air, not enough air for everybody. But we cannot afford to go on the upper deck of the boat because it would make the boat unstable. So everybody have to stay in the lower deck, and it's very tough, rough environment with the crowd and the seasickness and stuff like that. Yeah. And on the third day, I remember, so the sea was calm, and then we saw some dolphin swimming along the boat. It was a very nice scene. Yeah, the boat was chugging along very slowly, and in the middle of nowhere, around the boat was the dark blue water, a little bit scary, and we don't see anything else. No birds, no tree, no land, just in the middle of nowhere, just going in some kind of direction. So we hope that the captain got a good compass and guide us to a good destination. But by that time, everybody was so tired because could not eat much. You don't drink much because you keep throwing up. And the sun is a killer. We didn't realize that being in the sun can be that burning. Yeah, so everybody have to hide themselves from the sun and just resting, try to rest and wait until we arrive in destination, which happened in the next day, the fourth day.
Just a little bit of detail. Most of the people were in the hall, but you got to see all of it, so you were up in the upper deck?
Once we got into international water, what happened is we take turn to go on the upper deck. Okay, so every time they allow like 10 people to go to the upper deck to get some fresh air and to move around a little bit. Because in the lower deck, we are like sardines, so tight. You only have space to sit. Yeah, you cannot lie down because not enough space. You have to sit there all day. It was very tough. Yeah.
And tell me about running out of food on the second day.
I think rather third day that we didn't bring enough food for everybody. Yeah, it's a logistic issue. Yeah, we have no more food, so people just stop eating. But anyway, I don't think that people feel like eating because everybody keeps throwing up. Yeah, so food or no food won't make any difference because people get seasick too badly.
So then what happened?
We just, I remember just don't eat anything and tough it till we got onto land on the fourth day.
Where did you arrive?
So I remember on the fourth day, then somebody start yelling that they see some birds. So it means that land was close. And then by the end of that day, then we did see some islands. And then later on at night, we saw light, a small city. Turned out to be Terengganu in Malaysia. Yeah. So the boat just rammed onto the beach, and then everybody jumped out from the boat into the water. You get your belonging and then jump out into the water and walk with the water up to your chest. to the beach. So it was Terengganu, Malaysia. Yeah.
And where did you go from there?
From there, I think we saw some villager and from some tourists, and soon enough they notified the local authority. So policemen came. They gathered everybody. They gave us some food, some sandwich. I remember. I never ate a better sandwich in my life. It was so good. It felt so sweet. Today I eat a sandwich, it didn't taste anything. But when I ate that sandwich in '79, it tastes so sweet. It's like it got so much sugar in it. Couldn't believe. So anyway, they gathered us into a community center. Stay there for a few days, or one day or two, and everybody was packed and sent on the bus, on the boat again. What? And we said, wow, no, not boat again. But apparently we are all sent to Pulau Bidong Island, where they set up a refugee camp for Vietnamese boat people. Pulau Bidong. It's about 1 hour offshore of Terengganu.
What was it like there?
It was almost an empty island. There's trees everywhere, it's green. There was some tent. So we arrived there and we were welcomed by former refugees that arrived before us. I remember our boat is the 15th boat arriving in Pulau Bidong. And the island population must be around, I would say, few hundred to 1,000 refugees. So I remember there was nice beaches, very nice beaches. And then we set up our tent. And then we start to explore the island, go around. Food was supplied by the United Nations. Yeah. And so we stayed there for about 6 months. 6 months. I learned to become a very good swimmer, swimming every day in the ocean. That was my good souvenir. I remember we sometimes we come late, so we're running out of food. So me and my brother had to go fishing from the rock, get some fish, and then cook them in a can and eat them. Some other day, ran out of supplies. We will walk around those rocky shore to grab some whatever moving creature, crab or snail, and eat them to get some meat to survive. But as a teenager, I did not worry too much. I think it's a good time in my life. Was worry-free, no school. Nice beach, nice weather. But I think my dad was more concerned than us about our future, because he was worrying if we get sick, then there will be no medical assistance, then there's a risk. So that's why we would hurry up to be interviewed by different country, try to get settled in the third country. And initially, my dad planned to go to the U.S. It was his first choice. But unfortunately, the lineup to go to the U.S. Was too long. I have to wait many more months. So Canada came, and they interviewed us. So my dad told them that he wanted to go to the U.S. but the Canadian delegation told us that the U.S. is right next to Canada. You can go to Canada and then you can move to the U.S. after if you want. So we said, wow, that's easy. And then the Canadian official showed us some nice picture about Canada. The Toronto, nice and green, the Ontario Lake, beautiful. So then he made up his mind, decided to go to Canada. So that's why our destiny linked to Canada since then.
Where did you first arrive in Canada?
We arrived in Montreal on a cold day of March '79. We landed in Mirabel International Airport, and we bused to downtown, hotel downtown. Yeah, it was a long flight from Malaysia. We transit from Dubai, and from Dubai to Montreal. It was like 24 hours flight. Yeah, I remember I had only a torn shirt, a piece of pair of sandal, old sandal, a short, and nothing else.
You arrived in
No luggage. I don't have any luggage. Yeah. And
you walked out of Mirabel Airport in March.
In March.
A pair of shorts.
So if you ask me what is my first impression of Canada, I would say it's cold. It's cold. It's very cold. But the way they organize it, because most refugees don't have a jacket, so they put the bus directly linked to the airplane through a tunnel, heated tunnel. So we walk from the airplane to the bus, heated bus. Yeah, I felt the cold the first time, and I get out of the bus to the hotel door. I realized that Canada was really cold. It was minus 8 degrees with few flurries. Yeah.
How did you find out about where you would live?
I think staying in a hotel in Montreal for the first few days. Then immigration officer will sort out who is going where. We are a group of, a few hundred people, refugees from Southeast Asia. So I guess because the fact that my dad can speak some French, it's decided that we will be sent to Quebec City. Yeah. Then we end up staying there for 11 years.
Did you have a sponsor?
No, we don't have a sponsor. We are under the charge of the government. No sponsor. Some family have sponsor, either private sponsor or church sponsor, but not us.
Can you describe your settlement experience?
In general, I would say it's very smooth, very smooth. We like everything we see, everything we experience. It's, because everything is coming from communist country and the hardship of a refugee camp. It's like going to heaven for us. Yeah. Other than the cold that I did not like, the rest of the adjustment is very smooth. I think now I used to tell my kids about, because they asked me the same question, was it hard when you came to Canada? I said, no, it's not hard at all. The thing you have to adjust to is you used to walk, now you have to drive a car. Okay? You used to bike everywhere, now you have a car, you drive everywhere. you take the bus. It's easy. You used to eat twice a day, and now you can eat 3 times, 4 times a day. It's an easy adjustment. I used to sleep on the ground. Now I had to adjust to sleep on a mattress. So that's very smooth. Yeah. I think my dad, as a teenager, I don't have much worry. I enjoy everything that happened to me in the first few months in Canada. But for my dad, he's probably more worried about our future, how he can find a job and stuff like that. But very soon those worry just goes away, because the way that the government take us in charge and helping us with different social worker, help us to find an apartment, to help my dad to find a job, sign us up for school. No, it's very nice. Now looking back, I can affirm that it was probably the best 6 months of my life, first 6 months in Canada, because the difference was too big. Yeah.
Can you talk about that? What help did you receive to settle in?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the very beginning, it's mostly from social worker sent by the government. So they help us to settle in. They show us around the city, how to go to the grocery, and how to take the bus, do all the paperwork for us. And a little bit later, we had help from our neighbors, Canadian neighbors. They were so nice and kind. Personally, I got a lot of help from my friend in school, my Canadian friends in school. I found they very kind and helpful. Yeah, because sometimes, I remember at the beginning I cannot speak the language, and I don't know when is the due date for an assignment. So they help me out. They tell me when I need to hand in my assignment. Things like that I still remember. Very nice.
Did you have to go back a year or two in school, or did you go right into grade 9?
I think the first year we went to French school just to learn the language. And after 3 months of French school, after that we were sent directly to regular class, because we arrived in March. So in May we started French school, and in September started regular class. In September, grade 9. Yeah, that's why but I still need a lot of help from my friends in school with the homework and stuff.
What were the obstacles or struggles that you and your family faced?
Yeah, I would say mainly the climate. Winter is tough. We're not used to it because we're from a tropical country. And second biggest obstacle, as far as I'm concerned, is a language barrier. So it took about a year to learn the language, and after that, everything went pretty smoothly.
What difficulties did your dad encounter trying to find a job?
He has some problem to find a job in his field, because he's a civil engineer. So he need to get his degree approved by Canada, which took a few years. Yeah, that's about it. Mainly is about job, how to find job. So at first he was he worked in the hotel as a receptionist for the first few years, and from there, as he get more integrated into Canadian society, get more network. Was able to find a job as an engineer about 5 years later with the city of Quebec. Yeah. Yeah, so in general, I found that since we landed in Canada, life is just getting better and better and better every year. Yeah, that's my impression.
So how long did it take for you to start feeling at home in Canada?
For me personally, I would say take about 2 years. The first year is a lot of things to learn, a lot of new stuff, get adjusted to the language, to the climate. And then after the second year, I start to feel pretty comfortable when I understand everything was set around me, start to be integrated into the community, the school, making new friends in school. Learn to enjoy the winter. We learn to skate, to play hockey, to ski, thanks to our Canadian friends that initiated me to playing hockey. Yeah, I still remember the day I scored my first goal in the outdoor ring. Was a milestone. It's funny. Yeah.
Tell me about that, Dan.
Well, because we used to play outdoor hockey in the winter time, but because I'm new to the game, so I'm not good at all. So at the beginning, they put me in the net or in the defense. But that day I was lucky to shoot the puck and it hit somebody and went into the net. So I was so happy. Yeah, it was quite something. So feel like, okay, now I'm a Canadian. I can score hockey goal. Sorry, I'm every time I tell those souvenirs, I'm really touched. It's a happiness tear. Yeah, those are good memory. Sorry. So may I drink a bit of water?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Okay. Good.
How long did it take before the rest of your family could join you?
My mom and 2 younger brothers came 2 years later. I was sponsored by my dad because he had a job, so he was allowed to sponsor. Now I understand why he was so eager to get a job at all cost, even though it's not a job in his field. Is to be able to sponsor my mom and 2 younger brothers to Canada. Yeah, so it took them 2 years. Yeah, so I remember we made the trip to Montreal, from Quebec City to Montreal, Mirabel Airport, to welcome them. It was very touching because I have not seen my mom for 2 years. Yeah. Yeah, so everybody was so happy. And the family He said the family is free at last. It's free because when we came to Canada, half of the family was free. The second half we still get stuck with the communists. And now in 81, the whole family were reunited and free. Yeah, and based on our experience, I knew that my two younger brothers will enjoy life in Canada as much as we did. And they did. Sorry.
From what you were told, was life all the more difficult for your mom after you left?
Yes. My mom told us that after the day we left, police came to my house and asked her about my dad and us. So she had to come up with a story about our sudden disappearance. And from that day, she was harassed about us leaving the country. But she had to cope with it with the help of a relative. And so for 2 years, she had to cope with it. She had to sometimes pay them some money to have peace. Because I think ultimately they just want to confiscate your house. They just want to kick her out and get the house. That's the purpose of the harassment. That was a common strategy from the government. When somebody tried to escape from the country, they confiscate their house and their asset and give it to government official. So she had a very hard time. So she was traumatized. Once in Canada, she told me she's still having nightmare for a few years before those nightmares got dissipated. And it was very tough.
Did she tell you what the nightmares were of?
The nightmare is mainly have to face the police, be harassed by them, or to imagine that they can come to your house in the middle of the night, searching, because they, as I mentioned, they are the law. They can search your house anytime they want, for any reason. So people like my mom had nightmare about those episodes. She was very scared because her husband has now committed the crime to escape the country, which was not allowed.
So now, 40 years later, how do you feel about your family having made the decision to come here to Canada?
I think it was the right decision. I think we are very blessed to be welcomed by Canada. How I feel after 40 years, I feel very happy. I feel I'm such a lucky person. First of all, to be alive to survive that trip, because I have relative, my uncle family perished at sea. My 2 cousins have disappeared from their trip. We never hear anything from them. We assumed that they were drowned. So just to be alive, that was a blessing. And on top of that, to be accepted by Canada, came to Canada, such a beautiful country, very nice people, very kind, really touched my heart. Yeah.
You might have answered this question already. Do you have some general thoughts about Canada's humanitarian reaction to the refugee crisis?
Yes, I think it's a very generous for Canada to accept so many refugees, especially us, the Southeast Asia communist refugees. I think they set an example to the rest of the world about human helping other human being. No, it's a very nice and generous from Canada, definitely.
And now, do you discuss your experiences of war and resettlement with the next generation?
Yes, I do. I'm teaching my kids. I'm telling my kids about our boat people story. I bought some book for them to read. I show them some video clips. So just to want them to learn where they're coming from. Because I found it's important to know where you're coming from and not taking everything in Canada for granted. Yeah.
What do you think future generations of Canadians, your children or other children, what do you think that they could learn from your personal experience in Canada's refugee program?
Yeah, for the refugee program, I think that Canada have shown a tremendous generosity to the world. What future generation can learn from my personal experience, I would say I came to Canada empty-handed. I had to start from scratch, but we have hope and we work hard. So maybe it can inspire some kids today if they have difficulty, if they're facing a difficult situation. Don't give up. Keep working hard, and then you will be rewarded with success. Yeah, that's all I can tell for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
It was a very great story. Very nice story.
Yeah, witty. Okay, so I'd like to tell my story about our first trip to a grocery store in Quebec City. So usually, if you have a sponsor, they would go with you and show you around. But in the case of our family, we did not have any sponsor, so we went by ourselves. So my first impression about a groceries was it was very spacious, it's big, it's a lot of food, and I was quite impressed. So as we were browsing the can section. So we saw various canned food, sardine, jam, and other canned food. But then I noticed there's some can with dog and cat label on it. So I said, wow, that's cool. I didn't know that Canadians are eating dog meat and cat meat like us back home in Vietnam. So let's try the Canadian dog to see how they taste. So we ended up buying one dog food can, one can with the dog picture in it, and another can with the cat picture in it. So then I think the next day we tried to spread it on our sandwich. Realized that the Canadian dog didn't taste very good. Yeah. And my brother did not like his cat meat either. He said, no, it did not taste like cat back home. Yeah, so that was a real story, but it was it's funny. I thought it was funny. Secondly, to come back a little bit about why we left the country, and the boat people in general, the boat people phenomenon in general. Because my understanding is the Vietnamese people are very attached to their homeland. During the history of Vietnam, we went through many wars and hard time and starvation, but people just move from one city to another one to avoid a war, from one village to another one, but they never leave the country. Only when war had ended that they start to leave the country. So I concluded that they must have seen something worse than the war. Yeah. So I let the audience guess. But that's my thought about the whole boat people experience. And to back it up, I think if you read a little bit about Vietnam recent history, we went through 100 years of French domination. Nobody left the country. And then another 20 years of American war, like the war with the Americans. Nobody left the country. Only when communists came after the war that people start leaving the country. And not only a few people, everybody in South Vietnam at the time, if they had the chance and the means, they would leave the country. So, and it became like a biggest exodus in the Vietnamese history. Yeah, it was a tragedy to Vietnam, I think. That now I'm getting older. That's my thought about the whole boat people phenomenon. Yeah. So, and lastly, I just want to say that I'm forever grateful to Canada to welcome me with their open arm and heart. So, in my eye, Canada is the best. Yeah. Vive le Canada. Thank you. Yeah, that's all I have to say to compliment this interview.